So here we got Mr. Bean. So you know it's going to be some unhinged stuff right here. This is going to be pretty crazy. But this is a perfect example of what not to do for for cardiac arrest, for CPR. All right, so the patient goes down. First thing you want to do is not that. Don't run away. First thing you want to do is check for responsiveness. Or, well, first PPE, scene safe, as always. You want to see if anyone else knows what happened. Anyone saw it happen. But Mr. Bean here saw him go down. So, theoretically, he should know what happens. You see them go down, you want to check responsiveness. Be like, hey, sir, can you hear me? If they don't hear you, then you want to not kick the patient. You want to give a little trapezius pinch or a sternal rub, see if that'll wake him up. Never kick the patient. Just, don't hit anyone. All right, so it's checking for a pulse there, which is good. That is the next thing that you do. You check for a pulse and for breathing. Granted, he was palpating the AC, which is not an artery. That's a vein, so it will never have a pulse. Even if a patient is perfectly healthy, you're not going to find a pulse there. Typically want to go for the radial or the carotid for an adult patient. And he's trying to get help, which is good because he has no idea what he's doing. But he should have started compressions by now because he checked for a pulse, didn't find a pulse. He did everything up to this point. He didn't check breathing, but he'll do that pretty soon. But yeah, if you are just on the street, you're not in the truck, you don't have anything with you, start compressions. Either you call 911 yourself, put them on speakerphone while you do CPR, or you can call somebody else over and have them do it. But you don't want to interrupt your compressions, really, ever. Also, don't step over your patient. That's bad. I don't know what that move is, but it's not good. So here he goes. He's checking for breathing. You want to look, listen, and feel for breathing. Put your ear up to their mouth, see if you can hear anything, feel anything. Look at the chest, see if it's moving. If it's not, then that's when you know it's time to start compressions, as he's doing now, or he's trying to do. For compressions, you want to go about a third of the way into the chest, 2 to 3 inches, depending on the patient's size, of course. But yeah, you want to do about a third of the way in the chest. About 100 to 120 times a minute. There's plenty of songs out there at that tempo that you can sing in your head. Don't be singing them out loud, though, unless you really have to. But yeah, do 30 compressions, followed by 2 ventilations, kind of on a cycle. So we actually almost did that during COVID, heel compressions, but it's very difficult to get high quality compressions with your foot. So those that never existed. Just trying to inspect the airway, which is good. You want to do a head tilt chin lift, try to open that airway, make it easier for them to breathe. Looks like he's gonna try to start mouth to mouth, which we don't do anymore. I don't know what that move is for that whole motion, but yeah. If you are out on the street, you don't have your equipment with you, you don't have a BVM, you can pretty much just bypass ventilations if you don't have the equipment to perform them. You don't want to do mouth-to-mouth because typically when a patient is in cardiac arrest, there is stuff coming out of their mouth that you don't want in your mouth. Typically they are vomiting, and there is enough residual oxygen in their bloodstream that if you are performing high quality compressions and you're circulating it, it'll be good enough. It's not worth the risk of sucking in their vomit and yourself becoming a patient. So no mouth to mouth. None of this either. Okay, so for learning's sake, we can pretend that this is a BVM and he's doing the right thing. So he is, hypothetically, squeezing the bag and he is watching the chest rise, which is good. You want, when you squeeze the bag, you want to watch that chest rise. Only go until it rises. You don't want to pop a lung or anything. Don't be Hulk squeezing that bag or anything. Do it once every 6 seconds. That's where you can start. Depending on the patient's pH, their acidity, you can change how quickly you ventilate your patient. 6 seconds is a good baseline. If your patient is super acidic, then you're going to want to ventilate a little bit quicker, a little more deep maybe. But yeah, you want to try to bag that CO2 level down. If the patient is very basic, then if you're hyperventilating them, you can slow it down a little bit, the bag, let that CO2 build up a little bit and have a good little pH for the bloodstream. Alright, so you only want to do 2 ventilations. He did 3 there. The reason that you only want to do 2 in a CPR cycle is you want to minimize the time that you're not doing compressions, because compressions become more efficient the longer you do them. So the first 10 compressions or so, they are not super efficient. It's only after that when you start really getting high quality circulation from your compressions. So if you're doing 3 ventilations as opposed to 2, then you are sacrificing time when you could be doing compressions, and the body's not being oxygenated. Cells are dying. It's not good. So don't do this either. Don't just put random drugs into your patient. Maybe it's... Also, don't do that. You're gonna break their teeth. You're gonna create an airway obstruction. But yeah, don't put drugs in the patient. Maybe it's epinephrine. Maybe it's a CPR drug. Maybe, but even then, don't do that. It's not in our scope at all. Don't do that. Don't shake the patient. Okay, so he's getting help. That's good. But as I said earlier, you don't want to interrupt your compressions to get help. You can just shout, have them come over. Don't want to interrupt those compressions. You're losing valuable time. Have them come over to you and help you out. Okay, so now he has jumper cables. It looks like he's going to try to jumpstart his heart with jumper cables, which you don't want to do. AEDs are great tools, but they're not super easily replaced with things like jumper cables. It's not the same. Jumper cables deliver constant high voltage electricity. An AED is a short controlled shock. There's a difference. AEDs are fireproof. They are really easy to use. Literally talks to you. You just apply the pads, plug it in, turn it on. It'll tell you if it's a shockable rhythm. Jumper cables will not tell you if it's shockable rhythm, so you might not even do anything. Just use an AED, and if you don't have an AED, don't use jumpers. But early defibrillation is a great tool. If you do have the AED, gotta get that on right away. So now he's got ROSC, which is return of spontaneous circulation. Typically, they aren't gonna jump up right away. They're still gonna look very dead. They're just gonna have a pulse now. It's the only difference. um, but yeah. Also, don't shock a living patient. When they don't have a pulse, you have nothing to lose. You got that pulse back, now you have something to lose. Just don't shock a conscious patient ever. Big no. Don't do that. So he does it pretty out of it, which is maybe kind of accurate. So yeah, that's why you don't shock conscious patients, because they have a pulse, and then you can just send them into cardiac arrest, and you'll have to start over again. Hypothetically, if you do kill a patient, don't run away. um, yeah, don't do that. So yeah, that was basically don't do anything that he just did. That was a really, yeah, that was interesting.